Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a very warm Tashidelik and good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the closing session of today's conference. My name is Pempadun. I'm the Deputy Program Coordinator at Tibet House, New Delhi. I will be moderating this final session of the student panel discussion. We are incredibly fortunate to have Venerable Professor Kumarjiva as our chairperson. And we also have 7 enthusiastic panelists who are Ms. Kamasichula, Ms. Tsewang Lhadron, Ms. Stanzin Lhadron, Ms. Pooja, Mr. Rahul, Mr. Abhishek, and Mr. Rahul Kumar will be sharing these insights today. With this, I would like to kindly request our chairperson and all the participants to come up to the dais and take your respective seats. Before we proceed the session, I would like to give a brief introduction of our chairperson, Venerable Professor Kumarjiva. Venerable Kumarjiva is non-resident senior fellow at the Center for Excellence in Himalaya Studies, Shiv Nanda University, Delhi. Professor Kumarjiva holds advanced degree from the University of Cambridge, where she also taught development economics and political economics. Professor Kumarjiva completed the Nalinda Master Course in Buddhist Philosophy at the Tibet House, New Delhi, and previously served as a principal of the Dalai Lama Institute for Higher Education, Bangalore. I now request our chairperson to kindly take over the session. Thank you.
Good evening, and Tashi Dele, thank you for your patience to stay for the last panel. It's always the best, the student panel discussion. Before we start, for words of auspiciousness, I will just recite a verse. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all tainted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. I would like to thank Tibet House, the director, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdullah, and all the staff for inviting me to chair this panel. It's a great honor. Tibet House conferences have become absolutely amazing. And today I just had 2 observations from listening to the presentation since morning. The first is that, I'm starting to wonder how our teacher, Venerable Geshe-la, has convinced us that without knowing Sanskrit, Pali, or Tibetan, we are able to study the great Buddhist canonical texts in English. So I think it's a hallmark of a teacher that there is so much encouragement that, on emptiness and on the most sophisticated texts of the Buddha's teachings, there are many of us who are, proceeding and able to do that. Though, of course, the takeaway message from all your presentations is that if one could, have an understanding of these languages, it would greatly enrich our journey. My second observation, of course, it gave me new appreciation for the great Lotsawas of Tibet. They were considered Dharma beings in and of themselves, the great Rinchen Zangpola, and so many others, who made this journey possible, who even gave their lives. So many great Jezun, Ra, Lotsawa, for the tantric texts, for the sutras, all the teachings, and in the complete form, the Buddha's teachings are to be found in the land of snows in Tibet. So it is a greatly symbiotic relationship that the Buddha's teachings have flourished in the Arya Bhumi and then kept up and maintained in the land of snows in its complete form that we have with us today because of the political situation. And we literally have this scholarship with us today in India with His Holiness the Dalai Lama here since 1959 and all these great teachers and masters. So I do hope, as many of you spoke today, that in fact if we could have the translation back into Indian languages, Indic languages, this would be a great service to India, and also our move, as Geshe-la said in the opening panel, about the soft power possibilities of Buddhism in today's world, where China is claiming access to this entire tradition, whereas it is actually India that has had it. And we must honor that, and honoring that, as Geshe-la said in the opening panel, and many of you have also eloquently said, is the mark of civilizations, is then maintaining that literature, those living lineages, which is so, so important. So with that word of welcome, we will turn to our student panel, and I will call up each speaker. We have a fantastic set of 7 of them, and they will have about 8 minutes each. So our first speaker is Ms. Karma Sichola. She's pursuing a master's in Buddhist studies at Rabjung Yeshe Institute in Nepal. She's translating Lama Dakpa Shedrub's commentary on the 3 principal aspects of the path. Her focus is on understanding these aspects in the Gelug tradition and exploring how compassion and dependent origination lead to happiness. Ms. Sichoe aspires to make these teachings accessible to all while aligning her personal growth with her long-term goal of transcending linguistic barriers. And as ever, the younger generation is so inspiring. She also is working in Tibet House, Delhi. Big round of applause, and over to you.
Tongni Ningje Song to Jukpe Lam Checher Selze Kanjen Tindro Gun Chana Bemu Tinzin Gatsocho Solva Depso Shenden Tindrop Show. I welcome you all and thank you all for joining today's conference and making it to the end of today's session. And I also would like to thank Venerable Geshe-la and Tibet House team for giving me this opportunity to, for my own personal growth and to deliver what I would like to say. So now, without further ado, a few weeks ago, in a car drive with Venerable Geshe-la, I remember asking him what I, as a student, within my own capabilities, can do to spread the rich Nalinda tradition as reflected in Tibetan Buddhism to our neighboring Chinese brothers and sisters, to which the population constitutes 18% of the world population, to which Venerable Geshe-la responded by saying there should be a short-term goal as well as a long-term goal. So for the short-term goal, one has to improve, taking every opportunities one can, such as taking part in workshops, conferences, and so forth. And the long-term goal is to set a vision. So today, I think I'm taking this opportunity to improve my ability to deliver what I intend in a very short amount of time and become more fluent. So I would like to start. So first, in these degenerate times, in the name of religion, caste, ethnicity, and nation, we have created havoc in various parts of the world, causing constant fear, unhappiness, and anxiety. We oftentimes identify ourselves with the secondary aspects of ourselves, such as the nation, religion to which we belong, and so forth. To be honest, these secondary aspects of our existence does play an important role. It has its own conventional purpose, but due to our ignorance, this has created division among us. At Tibet House, I have the opportunity to meet many participants from different backgrounds, and when I feel close to them, I used to ask them, why are you a Buddhist? Are you a Buddhist by birth or by choice? To my surprise, most of them would reply they are a Buddhist by choice. So when I further asked them, why are you a Buddhist by choice? Then they would say that the teachings of the Buddha gave them solace, a sense of satisfaction, and a meaning to their life. So with this, since we all acknowledge that we all want happiness and get rid of misery, from the Buddhist perspective, the root cause of misery is the self-grasping ignorance and the self-cherishing attitude. Self-grasping ignorance is the ignorance which, it is the subtlest form of ignorance which views things as existing objectively real. Whereas self-cherishing attitude is the attitude which considers oneself more important than others. These two subtle forms of ignorance give rise to various manifest sufferings such as anger, hatred, ignorance, and you name on. Only by removing these two types of ignorance, we can able to experience maximum happiness and total fearlessness. So one might wonder what is wrong about thinking about oneself, and because it doesn't harm others. So I think it is in the first place, it is a wrong question, because we have this notion of I versus the others. We think I we have this sense of I only independence on others. So we create this division thinking I exist as objectively different from others. So, having discussed about the nature of suffering and its root cause, we will now discuss about the remedies to these two root afflictions. And this brings me to the topic of my dissertation, which is on the three principal aspects of the path. The first of which is renunciation. Renounce what? It is to renounce the misery. And second is bodhicitta, the unconditional love of bodhicitta. It uproots our self-centered attitude. And third, the wisdom of emptiness, which uproots our self-grasping ignorance. So, the teachings on these two gems, the bodhicitta and wisdom of emptiness, are explained extensively in Tibetan Buddhist canon. That is why translation plays an important role here. It is because of the purpose of translating these two gems, the concept of the bodhicitta and emptiness, that we have to be more mindful and to spread the teachings on these two gems. So this brings me to my next point, a brief history of translation during the early and later diffusion of Buddhism in Tibet. Particularly, I would like to discuss on Kangyur and the Tengyur section. Discussions on translation with emphasis on loss during translation often led to skepticism. The shifts in phonetic qualities, grammatical relations, and etymological implications during the translation process has given rise to strong theories of translatability. Particularly, the philosophers of the Vyakarana and Mimamsa philosophers in India, they posit that there is an intrinsic or essential relation between the word and the meaning. But in contrast, Sakya Pandita Kunga Khyentse, who is the founding forefather of the Sakya tradition in Tibetan Buddhism, he said that he argues that language is a symbol or a medium through which human exchange experiences, information, and ideas. In line with Sakya Pandita Kunga Khyentse, Ralph Waldo Emerson, an American essayist and philosopher, he said, any important insight into human experience and human nature in one language should be translatable into another language. So coming back to Sakya Pandita and his views regarding translation, he Buddhicizes the nature of language. He defends his theory of translatability by bringing the Buddhist view that there is no eternal relation between the word and the meaning. The speaker has to give meaning to the word by investing a sound with the particular intentions. Sakya Pandita proves his point in his book, Treasury of Reasoning, in which he used the term generality and object generality. Term generality is the general concept that we form of a particular sound. So once we have the term generality, we have the object generality, which is a concept we develop, and then we associate with the term. And it is known as the object generality. Since both the term generality and the object generality are different from the sound and the object itself, Sakya Pandita, he holds that these two are conceptual constructions, thus proving that translation is possible and the insights can be transferred without any barriers. Now I would like to talk about the translation of Buddhist scriptures in Tibet. It was during the 6th to 8th century that Tibet experienced its golden era. The spread of Buddhism during this period is known as the early diffusion of Buddhism in Tibet. Many scholars and Pandita were invited to Tibet, and many scriptures were translated. It was only during the 8th century King Chizong Deodzin that the translation was systematized and standardized. This led to the formation of the famous volume known as Mahavyutpati Dictionary. Yeah, and this effort by the three emperors also led to the foundation of the Tibetan Buddhist canon, known mainly as the Kangyur and Tengyur. Kangyur is the collection of the translated words of the Buddha himself, and Tengyur is the collection of the commentaries by the Indian Buddhist scholars on the words of the Buddhas. In the Tibetan Buddhist canon, without going too much into the detail about the many additions present in Tibet, such as Tege, Chone, Narthang, and so on, which gives different counts of the Kangyur and the Tengyur volumes. Roughly speaking, there are around 103 volumes of Kangyur and 213 volumes of Tengyur. These counts do not include Tibetan indigenous works. indigenous masters' work, which far exceeds total volume count of Kangyur and Tengyur. Now, one question might arise, like, did Buddha give teaching constituting only 103 volumes? Well, the Buddha gave 84,000 heap of doctrines, and what constitutes each doctrine? There are various theories and traditional beliefs around this question, example, in Chungwampadze by Treasury of Abhidharma by Acharya Vasubandhu, he said that each doctrine has the weight of being carried by the king of the god Indra's elephant. That suggests that 84,000 heap of doctrines are so vast that 84,000 heaps of such elephants are required to carry them. In Golden Rosary of Gold, Good Explanation by Tsewang, it is mentioned that some of the Buddha's teachings are in other realms of existence, not in the human realms. Also, he mentioned that the Buddha's teachings underwent destruction in history, due to which the Nagas came and took it. So, yeah, these are traditional beliefs, but I'm just saying it. So one such example is Arya Nagarjuna, who is said to have gone to the Naga realm to retrieve the scriptures such as Prashnaparamita Sutra, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. So what I'm trying to say here is that although we do not have access to all the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, but what we can do is preserve what we have in our hands. And we have to preserve it, and then we have to make it accessible to all sentient beings, transcending the linguistic barriers. Because what is the purpose? The purpose is to transmit the teachings on emptiness and the unconditional love of bodhicitta for the benefit of beings, to make them live, to make all of us live a meaningful and purposeful life. So with this, I come to the conclusion of my talk, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, Karmala, for that wonderful talk. Our next speaker is Miss Tsewang Lhamo, who is at present pursuing a PhD at Banaras Hindu University with, I think, Professor Siddharth. Her notable achievements include completing and pursuing the Nalanda courses from Tibet House and the Logic and Debate course by Institute Lama Tsongkhapa in Italy. In August 2024, she spoke at Vajrayogini, organized by Yoga Life, and she's also qualified by Indian Council of Philosophical Research. She aims to blend philosophical wisdom with compassion to foster a more meaningful life for herself and her community, bridging theoretical insights with practical applications for personal growth and community growth as well. Over to Tsewang Lhamo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Venerable Professor Kavarikil, for introducing me. First, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Venerable Geshe-Dorji Damdula and the entire Tibet House team for providing us this invaluable opportunity. Your dedication to fostering our skills and knowledge is greatly appreciated, and it has been an enriching experience for us as students, and I feel privileged to do my presentation in presence of my supervisor, mentor, Professor Siddharth Singh Ji, and today I'm honored to share the chosen topic on approaches to the translation of Buddhist texts in China and Tibet, cultural, linguistic, and philosophical impacts. So, the journey of translation marked by cultural, linguistic, and philosophical adaptations, which played a crucial role in shaping Buddhist thought and practice across the regions. It will cover the evolution of translation approaches, the influences of early translation efforts, and the preservation of assimilation of texts in these distinct yet interconnected traditions. The spread of Buddhism into China involves significant cultural and religious exchanges. Buddhist monks from Kuka in northern China were crucial in translating texts, aiding Buddhism's growth in the 8th century AD. Despite the decline of northern states, Buddhism thrived under the Uyghur Turks in Tufan until the 11th century. Initially introduced from eastern Turkestan by nomadic tribes around the 8th or 1st century BC, Buddhism quickly earned recognition as tolerated religion. Buddhism in China gradually assimilated with the early Buddhist monks adopting elements of Taoism to make Buddhism concepts more accessible to the Chinese audience. Taoists, in return, exchanged ideas with Buddhists benefiting from their teachings, particularly regarding the organization of monastic lives. This mutual exchange facilitated the translation of thousands of Buddhist texts from the Indian languages into Chinese, making it one of the largest translation projects in history. By the 6th and 7th centuries, major schools of Buddhism such as Pure Land Buddhism and Chan Buddhism, later known as Zen Buddhism in Japan, has formed, and these schools remain influential even in modern China, where religious practice are suppressed by the government. Other schools like Hunyang, Tentai also emerged differing in philosophical outlook, geographical focus, and political influence. This school later spread China, influencing Buddhism in Korea and Japan. And if you talk about the translation now, in early China stages, the translation were marked by the lack of formalized lexica or grammatical guides. Translator used previous works to inform their choices, which led to multiple Chinese equivalents for the same Sanskrit terms. Classical Chinese script being logographic, used symbols to represent both sounds and concepts, which posed a challenge for Chinese translation in the 2nd and 3rd century CE. When trying to convey Sanskrit sounds and concepts like kha or jwa, the lack of uniformity in expressing these phonetic and conceptual elements made it difficult for Chinese Buddhists to fully understand the original Indian ideas. However, this began to change in the 5th century CE with the introduction of Siddham script. Emerging from northern India and the remnants of Gupta Empire, Siddham was a phonetic script where each symbol represents a fixed sound or consonant. Unlike the ever-changing Chinese logograms, the Siddham letters preserve consistent pronunciation over time. And here, Saroj Kumar Chaudhary shares that Chinese scholars took Siddham with great excitement. They used them in their innovation, translations, and commentaries of Buddhist Indian sutras. It also allowed them to innovate their translations of Indian Buddhist sutras and even develop grammatical treatises on Sanskrit. For example, Fa Fun Hyu in 517 CE, the earliest non-Sanskrit Chinese lexicon, mirrors later typical Tibetan lexicons by prioritizing Buddhist terms. And monks like Vajrabodhi and Amanga Vajra further popularized the script, making an essential tool for transmitting Buddhist knowledge, in which in India, the Siddham script gradually evolved into Devanagari script, which is widely used in writing Sanskrit today. And as we all know that translation and hermeneutics were essential to spread Buddhism in China, as they helped bridging linguistic and cultural divides. According to Master Xin Yang, he shares that some phrases and terms in Chinese texts are unfamiliar because they refer to concepts or objects that don't have direct equivalents in the Chinese language. For instance, the words like thaka, which is a borrowed term not native to Chinese, and such as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are borrowed from the Sanskrit. The terms like Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is the state of unsurpassable enlightenment or all-knowing wisdom, and Maha Prajnaparamita, the great perfection of wisdom, are transliterated from Sanskrit because their meanings are difficult to convey precisely in Chinese. He shared that although these sutras may seem challenging, consulting dictionaries for these terms can help them more understandable. Okay. Then, in contrast, the translation of Buddhist texts into Tibetan was far more structured and systematic process. Many scholars who have talked from the point of view of translation from Sanskrit to Tibetan already spoke that Tibet developed a standard grammar and lexicon, establishing a sacred language or chosket. Chos correspond to the Sanskrit term dharma and kat denoting the language Bhashya in Sanskrit that were used consistently for translating Buddhist texts. In early Chinese translation, due to lack of formalized lexica, led to multiple Chinese equivalents for the same Sanskrit terms. Translator often relied on previous works, which resulted in various interpretations. In contrast, Tibetan translators focused on semantic clarity. For example, they translated Buddha as Sanghyes, the awakened, and Bhagavan as Chomdandes, the one having victory and transcending. This approach ensured that Buddhist concepts were accurately integrated into the Tibetan culture and philosophical framework. Tibetan translators using standardized grammar and vocabulary played a crucial role in preserving the exact meaning of Buddhist texts. Despite challenges like in the 1950s, Chinese invasion, texts were preserved by Tibetan exiles. The Tibetan translation of Sanskrit works are particularly notable for their preservation of texts that have otherwise been lost due to destruction. These translations are crucial for understanding many Sanskrit texts that are otherwise ambiguous. The translation efforts continued vigorously until the 17th century, involving sending Tibetan scholars to study in India and inviting Indian scholars to Tibet. This translation includes not only religious texts but also works on grammar and literary criticism, reflecting Sanskrit's broad influence beyond Buddhism. In essence, the translation of Buddhist texts into Chinese and Tibetan represent two distinct but complementary approaches, each shaped by its cultural and linguistic environment. Each Chinese translations were marked by adaptation and improvisation, while Tibetan translations were characterized by systematic rigor and standardization. Both approaches have profoundly influenced the development of Buddhism in their respective regions, contributing to its rich and diverse heritage. Moreover, the influence of Sanskrit extended beyond these regions, impacting languages such as Mongolia. With this, I end my presentation, and I want to share that it has been insightful to hear about the real-world challenges scholars are facing in translating texts from Sanskrit into languages such as Hindi, English, Tibetan, and Russian or Chinese. It is clear that more focus is needed in this area, and we hope that the younger generation will also engage in these efforts to ensure that the authentic teachings of Buddha are preserved and shared for the benefit of all. As Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul mentioned in the morning session, that these teachings have the potential to bring about changes in both cognitive and affective aspects of the mind, and we able to bring it into realities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tsewang Lamola. Very comprehensive presentation. Our next speaker is Ms. Stanzin Lhadron, who is right now pursuing her PhD from IIT Delhi while serving as a teaching assistant there as well. She's doing the Nalanda Master's course, Diploma course, and has also served on the transcription team of Tibet House. And she also has been the program coordinator of Flowering Dharma, a youth organization in Ladakh. She's also been an educator of sea learning of Emory University, USA, and she has been a speaker at the Sarva Mangal Yoga Series, Anubhav Series, organized by Spic McKay in June 2021. Over to you, Stanzin.
Thank you, Venerable Professor Kavirila. Good evening, everyone, both present here physically and those joining us online. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Tibet House staff, Venerable Geshe-la, for giving me and all of us here students this opportunity to share our presentation at today's conference. I will be speaking on the topic, the role of the three Tibetan Dharma kings in bringing the Tibetan translation of Buddhist texts from Sanskrit and spread of Buddhism in Tibet. As we know that Sanskrit language has played a significant role in the promoting literary anchor and cultural heritage in India, today we'll explore how the three Tibetan Dharma kings contributed to bringing Buddhist literary works from Sanskrit to Tibetan. In Tibetan, Sanskrit is known as Lekshariskat, and the literal meaning of it is the elegant language of the gods, as many of the profound Buddhist texts were written in this language. It is considered that through Buddhism, though Buddhism was introduced during the reign of King Lhadron in the 5th century, but Tibetans did not have its own script, which Venerable Lobsang Dorjila discussed in detail in earlier session. It was three Dharma kings, King Songtsen Gampo, King Trizong Detsen, and King Tril Rinpoche, made extraordinary effort selflessly to bring authentic Tibetan Buddhism to Tibet, making their reigns known as Golden Ages during their reign in Tibet. Let's begin with King Songtsen Gampo, the 33rd king of Yarlung dynasty, who is considered the founder of the Tibetan Empire. In the 7th century, he unified the Tibetan plateau, transforming Tibet into a powerful centralized state. His reign marked the initial introduction of Buddhism into Tibet, especially through his marriages to Princess Bhakhuti Devi of Nepal and Princess Wenchang of Tang dynasty in China, who brought sacred text, images of Buddha, and artisans to Tibet, further embedding Buddhism in Tibetan society. These marriages helped to establish a Buddhist presence in royal court and laid the foundation for the integration of Buddhism into Tibetan society. To facilitate the translation of Buddhist texts, King Songtsen Gampo appointed his minister, Thonmi Sambota, to study in India. Sambota invented the Tibetan alphabets and grammar and known as the father of Tibetan literature, about whom Professor Sandeep Kumarji also went into detail in earlier session. During his lifetime of King Songtsen, he promulgated laws to harmonize the 10 virtues prescribed by Buddhism, also commissioned the construction of first Buddhist temples in Tibet, which played a critical role in propagation of Buddhism in Tibet. He built the famous temples of Ramoche and Jokhang in Lhasa, and the grand architecture of 11-storied palace known as Potala. The remains of original smaller structure which he built is preserved to this day. Later, Tibetan Buddhist tradition often depicts him as an emanation of Aryavalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, underscoring his lasting spiritual significance. His reign is seen as turning point that marked the beginning of Tibet's long association with Buddhism, which would flourish under his successors. King Trizong Detsen, the second of the three Dharma kings, ascended to the throne in 8th century during a time of great transformation in Tibet, about whom in the morning Dr. Shedrubla went into huge detail, so I would not go into that. To reinforce the establishment of Buddhism in Tibet, Trizong Detsen invited highly respected Indian scholars like Bodhisattva Shantarakshita and Acharya Kamalashila, two great Indian scholars monks from Nalanda University and known for their expertise in Madhyamika's philosophy, epistemology, and logic. Bodhisattva Shantarakshita was invited to Tibet to help to introduce and formalize Buddhist teachings. He played a crucial role in establishing the monastic tradition and began the work of translating key Buddhist texts into Tibetan. However, his initial efforts met with resistance due to local opposition from born priests and natural disaster that were interpreted as a sign of disfavor from local deities. To overcome these challenges, Bodhisattva Shantarakshita advised king to invite Guru Padmasambhava, a tantric master from Swat Valley in modern-day Pakistan, who was renowned for his spiritual power and mastery of Vajrayana practices. Guru Padmasambhava is credited with his subduing the hostile spirits and local deities that were believed to be obstructing the establishment of Buddhism in Tibet. He also performed rituals to pacify these forces and ensure the success of Buddhist missions in Tibet. Under the guidance of Bodhisattva Shantarakshita and Guru Padmasambhava, Trizong Detsen founded the Samye Monastery in 8th century, the first Buddhist monastery in Tibet. Samye Monastery was designed based on the model of Udantapuri Monastery in India, combining elements of Indian, Tibetan, and Chinese architectures. It became the center for Buddhist learning, practice, and translation. He established a translation bureau at Samye Monastery, which was constituted of Indian and Tibetan scholars, to undertake the colossal task of translating the entire Buddhist canon. This project involved the translation of hundreds of Buddhist sutras, tantras, treatises, and commentaries into Tibetan, mainly from Sanskrit. It laid the foundation for creation of Tibetan Buddhist canon, which would later came to be known as Kangyur and Tengyur. During his time, the event known as the Council of Lhasa, or summit debate, was a critical moment in the religious history of Tibet. Trisong Detsen organized the debate to solve the conflict between proponents of Indian Buddhism, represented by Acharya Kamalashila, a disciple of Bodhisattva Shantarakshita, and the proponent of the paths of Chinese Buddhism, represented by Chan Master Mohiyan. The Indian school led by Acharya Kamalashila advocated for a gradual path to enlightenment through study, meditation, and ethical conduct. In contrast, Chinese school, specifically the Chan tradition, promoted the idea of instant enlightenment to achieve the direct experience without need of extensive study and practices. After several years of debate, Trisong Detsen declared Acharya Kamalashila and the Indian Buddhist tradition, the Nalanda tradition, as the victors. This decision has profound implication of the future Tibetan Buddhism. The outcome led to the establishment of the Indian Buddhist traditions, particularly the Mahayana and Vajrayana teachings, as the dominant religious philosophy in Tibet. The decision reinforced the importance of scholastic study, ritual, and meditation practices as the central elements of the Tibetan Buddhism. This work not only preserved the teachings but also made them accessible to Tibetans in their native language, allowing for a more profound understanding and practice of Buddhism. The translation efforts created a new intellectual and spiritual landscape in Tibet, which would go on to develop its own unique philosophical schools and lineages, such as Nyingma, which claims direct descent from Guru Padmasambhava's teachings. King Trisong Detsen is venerated as a pivotal figure in Tibetan Buddhism, regarded as an emanation of Bodhisattva Manjushri, the embodiment of wisdom. His reign set the foundation for the further growth and flourishment of Buddhism in Tibet. Lastly, King Triralpachen, the third of the three Dharma kings, reigned in 9th century, was deeply devoted to Buddhism. Building on the foundation laid by his predecessors, he established Tibetan bureaus, employed Tibetan and Indian scholars, and standardized terms and definition for the accurate translation of Buddhist texts. Unlike his predecessors, who faced substantial opposition from the Bon tradition, Sri Rinpoche was able to focus with greater ease on the consolidation of Buddhism thanks to groundwork laid by other two kings. He initiated the comprehensive review and editing of previous translations to ensure consistency and accuracy. This effort involved checking the translation for fidelity to the original Sanskrit text and correcting any mistakes or inconsistencies if discovered. The establishment of this institution structures ensured that translation process was both methodical and rigorous. To facilitate the accurate translation of Buddhist texts, Rinpoche introduced a set of standard terms and definition and creating specialized vocabularies to express the key Buddhist concepts. Okay, so I'll skip this. Usually, we see the problem in today's translation of Buddhist concepts in other languages, such as English, as we don't have standardization, uniformity in translation words, and removing the potential ambiguities. So those were removed during the King Rinpoche's reign. And he also initiated the compilation of catalog, which became known as Chorak, a record for translated scriptures. And after that. During his time, he invited Losavas from Indian and even the Indian translators such as Jinamitra, Dhanashila, and Surendra Bodhi, and Tibetan Losavas like Kawa Palsek and Chogra Gelsen. Rinpoche's devotion to Buddhism was so extraordinary that he made his young son to take monastic vows and gave various kinds of privileges and administrative authorities to the priesthood. Despite his assassination and temporary decline of Buddhism under his successor, King Rinpoche's work laid a firm foundation for the revival of Buddhism in Tibet, as latest masters like Jo Atisha Debamkara, who was invited to Tibet by immense efforts of important figures like Lama Isheo, a king of Western Tibetan kingdom, and his nephew Changchobo. In conclusion, the visionary efforts of these three Dharma kings ensured that the teachings of Buddhas were preserved and propagated throughout Tibet and beyond. Their contribution enriched Tibetan culture, literature, and philosophy, making Tibet a major center of Buddhist learning. By translating Buddhist texts from Sanskrit and Tibetan, they safeguarded these teachings for future generation, preserving them even after many of the original Sanskrit texts were lost due to man-made and natural disasters. And we owe to richness and continuity of Tibetan Buddhism to these great kings and their dedication to the Dharma, which continues to inspire practitioners worldwide till today. In closing, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Tibet House under the and Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah for organizing these enriching conferences time and again. Such events are particularly valuable for students like us, providing platform for deep philosophical and academic exploration through the insights of eminent speakers. And I sincerely hope that more such conferences will continue, and these are essential more than ever in today's world for civilized society, which Venerable Geshe spoke in the morning. And once again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ladullah, for an excellent tour de force of the history of the three Dharma kings. Our next speaker is Ms. Pooja, who is a dedicated scholar with an MA in Political Science from IGNOU and MA in Buddhist Studies from the University of Delhi. She's also pursuing a diploma in Pali. Pooja has presented award-winning papers on Buddhism and organized events, including mindfulness workshops and cultural programs. She actively contributes to academic communities and has also participated in the Women's Development Cell at Shivaji College and various international initiatives. Over to you, Pooja.
Good evening, everyone present here and joining online. My topic, Dr. Bhadant Anand Kosalyayan contribution to Pali translations. Dr. Kosalyayan is one of the pioneers in the Indian Renaissance presenting for realization of the aspiration, the modern and developed nation, a visionary intellectual dedicated for revival of the rich heritage of the subcontinent, the Buddha and his universal teaching for individual as well as social emancipation, following the footprints of Mahatma Gandhi in social and linguistic movement. He chose to adopt and promote Buddhism on the path of Dr. Ambedkar. He just did not stay as a lay follower of Buddha Dhamma, but also became a monk Buddha tradition and kept on obeying the order of Buddha of monks of Charat Bhikve Charikam Bahujan Hitaye Bahujan Sukhaye for entire of his life. Adoption, education, enhancement of the Buddha path remains the fundamental principle of his mission. He adopted Buddhism following the path of Dr. Ambedkar for annihilation of caste and realization of casteless society, which has foundation of equality among humanity and scientific inquiry. He called himself Ambedkarite and stayed throughout his life in Nagpur, the center of the revival of Buddhism in the modern India, and propagate the message of peace and humanity of the Buddha and advance the mission of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar of social justice and equality. Dr. Kosalyayan, renowned scholar of Hindi, traveled to South and Southeast Asian country to study Pali and Buddha Dhamma. He traveled and studied in Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand. The next step of his mission was advancement of Buddhist education. For the purpose, he joined Mahapandit Rahul Kumar, Bhikshu Jagdish Kashyap in written and translating the Pali texts in Hindi and English. These triple monk Bhikkhutrei decided themselves for composing new books and reading material as well as translating the Pali literature, which is the fundamental teaching of the Buddha. In his rich and varied publications, he composed about 65 books, including translation of Pali texts into Hindi as well as composing new books, commentaries, and literature of Dr. Ambedkar, in which the translation of his Buddha and his Dhamma is one of the milestone works. It was well charted teamwork of the triple monk translate Pali Tripitaka in Hindi, the Mahapandit translation, the Vinapitak, Dignikaya, and Majjhim Nikaya of Sut Pitak, whereas Dr. Bhikshu Jagdish Kashyap handled to the task of translation of Samyukt Nikaya, and Dr. Bhadant Anand Kosalyayan translate the Anguttar Nikaya, and some books of Khuddak Nikaya, including the Dhampad, Jatak, Khuddak Path, and Mahavansh, taking a step ahead in the serious studies of Dhamma. He translated Abhidham Sangho, the book of entry into the study of the Abhidhamma. To promoted Pali education, Bhadant composed Hindi books entitled 21 दिनों में Pali, a guide to learn Pali in a short term. Apart from translations and commentaries on Pali literature, Bhadant ji also promoted the mission of Dr. Ambedkar, equality and social justice through his literary works. He authored several books in Hindi to throw light on vision and mission of Dr. Ambedkar, as well as to spread awareness in society, to inculcate scientific inquiry and modern attitude. In his regard to wrote Intelligent Men, Guide to Buddhism, several books to advance his mission of Buddha and his Dhamma as followers. यदि बाबा साहब ना होते, दर्शन और बौद्ध धर्म एक बुनियादी अध्ययन, पाली कोश, ये कुछ बुक्स हैं, और भगवत गीता की बुनियादी समीक्षा, अछूत कौन और कैसे, जो लिखना पड़ा. These are some books. Thus, being a recluse, he proved himself a man of letter, concerned citizen, and intellectual who contributed significantly in shaping the social psyche of society in general, and marginalized in particular. Dr. Kosalyayan stand a shining star in history of Buddhism, a renowned literary figure who dedicated his pen for social transforming from to inequality to equality, from superstition to scientifically inquiry. May Bhante ji mission be fulfilled. Bhavatu sab mangalam. Thank you.
Wonderful, Pooja, to set out for us Baba Saheb Ambedkar ji's immense legacy in India. Our next speaker is Mr. Rahul Kumar, who's in his final year of his MA at the Department of Buddhist Studies at Delhi University, with intense curiosity in Buddhist culture, literature, translations, and ancient history. His academic pursuits are enriched by his dedication towards Pali translations, Buddha's life, and his Dharma, which enhances his understanding of Buddhism and collective sources, contexts like Tripitak and Dhamma. Over to you, Rahul.
Namaskar, honorable chief guests, professors, and all dear students. Myself, Rahul, and my presenting paper title is Dhamma in the translation of the Mahapandit. Mahapandit Rahul Sankirtan was born as a Kedarnath Pandey into a high caste Brahmin family. In April 1983, Uttar Pradesh. Universally, he was called as a Mahapandit, great scholar, was also known as the father of Hindi travel literature. He played a pivotal role in giving literary form to Hindi travelogue genre of writing. Rahul Sankirtan was an author, essayist, historian, and a scholar of Buddhism, and was also known for his integral role in the revival of Buddhism in India. He was a polymath and had a diverse and profound knowledge on subjects ranging from Indian civilization, culture to Vedas, Puranas, philosophy, history. Upon his contact with Buddhism, he tried and was successful in assimilations of Pali, Prakrit, Sanskrit, Abhrans, Tibetan, Chinese, Japanese, and many other languages in his Buddhist scholarly works. He had knowledge about nearly 30 languages, which can he speak, read, and write. And this ability helped him in the translations of all the major works into Hindi. Rahul Sankirtan has a wandering nature, and this helped him in acquiring knowledge of language related to wide-ranging places of the world. His specialty in languages kept changing with time and space. An important landmark in his life was the adoption of Buddhism in 1935 in Sri Lanka. In the whole journey of his life, he wrote nearly 140 books, and some of these are considered among the classic even today. He also prepared a Tibetan Hindi dictionary, which is proving to be very useful to scholars and researchers even today. Some notable works among his wide spectrum of scholarships include Volga to Ganga, Madhya Asia ka Itihas, Gumakat Shastra. For his great contribution to literature and society, he was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award and Padma Bhushan. His use of Hindi language in his works proved very useful in dissemination of knowledge and experience from his works and life to the common masses, and not just the educated intellectual elites, leaving behind rich legacy. Now I am telling about some his works on Buddhism. Rahul Sankirtan was close to Buddhism and Buddhist community. Sankirtan close affiliation to Buddhism start from his years in Sri Lanka, Theravada Buddhist country. Here, first studied Buddhism, learned Pali, and studied Tripitaka, in earning himself in the title of Tripitaka master of the Tripitaka, and initiated as a Buddhist monk. Earlier, Anagarika Dharmpala had set out and sacked Buddhist sites in North India and took him to Bodh Gaya. After on his return to Colombo from Bodh Gaya, Anagarika Dharmpala founded the Mahabodhi Society, reviving in Buddhism in India and promoting Buddhism in the rest of the world, establishing institutions, printing literatures to Buddhism. Rahul Sankirtan, before leaving Sri Lanka for Tibet in 1928, collected lots of Buddhist texts in Sanskrit. He was gained full of knowledge of Buddhism and particularly of the history of Indian Buddhism. He didn't want to become a monk right off, but he know at the time when he want to enter Tibet, that was not easy for Indians. So he decided and realized that he could only enter Tibet via Nepal at the Shivratri festival. That's why he chose the get of monk. He translated Majjhim Nikaya in Tibet in 38 days, Buddhacharya in 68 days, and Vinapitaka in just 27 days. Whatever errors were found in the translations done by him, his friends used to put in effort in correcting them. He also tried to remove some errors in these texts. Mention on this found in his writing. He explained how the sutras were first translated into Dignikayas translation, or rest of his writings were done by Bhikshu Jagdish Kashyap and Sri Krishnadev, contributing to the formation of this persist. Rahul Sankirtan has also mentioned Buddhacharya writings in the end of his Buddhacharya. In the same way, Rahul Sankirtan, in his introduction to Buddhacharya, wrote that looking at the words of Atkatha, Vinaya, or Sutra, it seems clear that in Vinaya there is a more Atishokti and Alaukikta, the source of light. The most important part of Vinaya Pitaka is Bhikshuni Patimokha. Vinaya Pitaka is useful to know the conduct rules of bhikkhus. In his translations, Vinaya can also see the list of their critical, political, and social affairs. By looking at Vinaya Pitaka, one gets known how to bhikkhus, while presenting the proposal, used to present in a specific form, which was called Gyapit. Their members were given 3 opportunities to speak in debate, which were heard, and the result of the complaints were read out through perception. During Theravada movement in Nepal, he was most active, and we grateful to explore the extinct Sankirtan cultivated relations with movement and its supporter. Rahul Sankirtan has also indicated the history of Mongolian Buddhism from its initial origin to its future condition. He wrote about Buddhism in Korea and the monasteries and the monks there. When he went to Korea in 1935, Yuandenji Vajra Mountain is the largest Buddhist monastery. At the time, 106 monks used to live there on this mountain. There is a description of a monastery named Huhonji, which was established by a monk in 677 AD. Rahul Sankirtan traveled to Korea and made an important contribution in spreading Buddhism through his writings. Rahul Sankirtan was a great scholar of Buddhism. He risked his life and traveled to remote countries to spread Buddhism. He did a wonderful job of discovering the extinct Buddhism in India and rare texts related to it and bring it onto light. Although before Rahul Sankrityan, some works was done by English, French, Japanese, and Russian scholars in the exploration, but there was something in Tibetan Rahul Sankrityan did. The first attempt to revive Buddhism in India was made by monk Anagarika Dharmpala, later Bhadant, Anand Kosalyayan, Rahul Sankrityan, and monk Jagdish Kashyap played a role in the development of Buddhism. Here are some translated works done by Mahapandit like Buddhacharya, Divyadana, Tibetan Buddhist text, Dignikaya, Majjhim Nikaya, Vinaypitka, Karuna Pundarika Sutra. So here I conclude him. Rahul Sankirtan initial endeavors relating to Buddhism and his relationship with many countries different perspective. This relationship was built up around Buddhism, particularly as regard his Tibet trips and relations with members of Theravada movement. To characterize translations of Rahul Sankrityan in many foreign languages and depicts the cultural similarities one culture soup. He was ordained as a monk in Sri Lanka. In his life was not merely to propagate and practice Buddhism as the path leading to Nibbana. Rahul Sankirtan is the only writer who gave a bright global platform to Pali literature by continuously traveling on the path illuminated by the wisdom of Buddha. His contribution to the revival Buddhism as well as the given development of Pali languages will always be remembered with deep honor and regard. He has given some great works, both original and in translation, to the Buddhist world. As for the Pali translation, he traveled to Tibet and unearthed some rare text in the land. The translation from which Mahapandit is highly praised today. What done is a despite threat to his life. Another important Buddhist literature during the times when the people of India had totally abandoned Buddhism. He traveled to the most Buddha viharas in Tibet and unearthed such rare texts as were wiped out by the non-Buddhists in India. So my paper is modest attempt to shed light on his contribution to the development of Buddhism. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for such a cogent, comprehensive presentation on your namesake. And India needs a reminder. I think Rahul Sanskritaya's papers are lying, or everything he carried on those mules back from Tibet is still sitting in a state of Bihar. I think few decades have passed, and Indians love drinking tea and chatting. So you have your project ahead of you. Our next speaker is Mr. Abhishek Upadhyay, who is a final year MA student at the Department of Buddhist Studies at Delhi University, with intense curiosity in Indian philosophy, films, Buddhism, Southeast Asian cultural studies, literature, and ancient history. His academic pursuits are enriched by his dedication towards philosophy, life, and heritage through films, which enhances his understanding of historical and cultural contexts. Over to you, Abhishek.
Namaskar everyone. I am Abhishek Upadhyay, final year postgraduate student of Buddhist Studies, University of Delhi. I am presenting my paper on Kumarjiva, a devoted translator and a pioneer in Chinese Buddhism. Kumarjiva, a son of Buddhist scholar of Kashmir and wandering nun, born in 343 century in the Kutch, presently in China. He received full ordination in the royal palace at age of 20 and studied the Vinaya of Sravastivada school. He was first part of a Sravastivada school, but later became a prominent figure of Madhyamika school. It is very hard to know whether he is Indian or Chinese, since during this time both traditions were blended. India was then known as Western heaven for Chinese people. Kumarjiva held a philosophical discussion with his teacher Bandhu Datta in Kutch, who was not too happy about his students' compliance with the contemporary sects. But Bandhu Datta once said, "I am your teacher in Theravada and you are my teacher in Mahayana." This discussion made him forerunner in Central Asia, and his notability quickly spread to China, attracting down a reputed monk of Chang'an to urge the former queen monarch Fujian to invite him. Kumarjiva studied Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism, and according to many traditional texts of Chinese history, King Zhao Jing was impressed by his knowledge, appointing him Rajguru. Zhao providing him with 800 scholar monks, establishing the Bureau of Translation, and asked him to start comprehending Buddhist Sanskrit text. With the participation of the king and ample amount of funds, Kumarjiva started the biggest ever project of translating 300 Buddhist scriptures. As noted by Professor B.R. Deepak, Kumarjiva used innovative methods such as transliteration and avoided the terminology or synonyms which can invoke mysticism prevalent at that time of China. In his translation, he sought unity of words. Kumarjiva discussed Sanskrit with his fellow monks, making them familiar with Indian literary styles, and some of sutras shows the poetic rhythm of Indian styles. For example, the Gatha, form of verse or poetic expression which employs metaphorical language along with rhythmic repetition to convey deep meaning in concise manner. For example, all phenomena are like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, or a shadow. It's a part of a Diamond Sutra. He perfectly adopted the paraphrasing style, deleting repetitive and confusing matter. According to book Kumarjiva, Philosophy and Sheer, published by IGNCA, his version of Lotus Sutra shows the linguistic development by employing a newly developed aspectual structure using temporal adverbs rather than typical Han period variants. Many scholars consider him a lexinal innovator who was progressive while retaining the main points of original scriptures. His translation followed the principle of submitting to the local language with proper structure and reading fluency. Kumarjiva translation of the great treatise on the perfection of wisdom was so exact and intellectually captivating and had 100 scrolls, while all other translation before him had 1000 scrolls with many absurd interpretation not corresponding to the original text. These translations are widely considered elegant in vocabulary and writing style by Chinese scholars, still making it easy for laymen to understand philosophical concepts. Although many believe that Kumarjiva did cut the length and made it brief, and did not translate all of the original. However, according to recent studies conducted by Chinese universities, the translations contain most of the content of the original sutras. At Dunhuang, complete version of Kumarjiva translation were preserved and studied by many scholars and monks, making this city a hub for Buddhist development throughout the Silk Route. Kumarjiva translation can be divided into two parts, Vinaya and meditation. For Vinaya, he translated Sarvastivad Vinaya Pitak, Pratimoksha Sutra. For meditation, he translated Suranga Samadhi Sutra. These translations of Kumarjiva served later as the root text for the school of Chinese Buddhism and other Eastern schools. The total existing translations are 74 texts kept in 384 rolls. Among them, the Pragya Paramita is the most popular translation. However, his translation of Sadharma Pundrika Sutra is considered the masterpiece of Chinese literature. These three scriptures, Pragya Paramita, Moola Madhyamika Karika, and Pragya Paramito Updesh, were called three treatises. His understanding of Arya Nagarjuna Madhyamika doctrine was so marvelous that his translation introduced Nagarjuna ideas in China and established the eastern branch of Madhyamika school. The translation of Kumarjiva Buddhist scriptures had fostering contribution to the development of Buddhism in China, Japan, and Korea. It can be said that to a certain extent, his translated texts had the direct role in founding sects like Tantai School of China, East Madhyamika School of China, Samnon School of Korea, Pure Land School of China, Pure Land School of Korea, Chan School of China, Zen School of Japan, Sion School of Korea, Yogacara of China, Hosso of Japan. It is important to note that these sects are subsects of Mahayana school of Buddhism. He refined the fundamental concept of Buddhism through his perception and clarity of Sanskrit Buddhist literature. His translation maintained the originality of Buddha Vachan, and it's noticeable that Eastern culture carried forward his approach to spirituality and meditation. Now, East Buddhist culture, specifically in China, they consider him their cultural pride. Kumarjiva translation are renowned for their polished literary quality. Since he was born in the bicultural environment, he mastered Sanskrit and learned Chinese at a very early age. Kumarjiva's ability to speak and understand spoken Chinese no doubt improved during his decade-long stay in Chang'an, which allowed him to translate without depending on Chinese collaborator and ensured a fine literary quality to the final text. His translation played a pivotal role in making Chinese Buddhism Mahayanistic in outlook. From the perspective of linguistic history, before and after Kumarjiva, Mahayan texts were translated, but it was Kumarjiva who, by the choice of what to translate, defined Chinese Buddhism as Mahayana. His translation aimed at conveying the meaning rather than strictly obeying the original text. In China, there is a legend of Kumarjiva's tongue not being burned by the flames during his cremation, representing his faithful intent to convey Buddha enlightenment from Sanskrit to Chinese language. This attracted laymen to study Buddhist literature, making him a torchbearer in translation of Sanskrit Buddhist texts in China and Central Asia. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful, Abhishek, for introducing us to Kumarjiva's life's work. Our last speaker today is Mr. Pavan Kumar, who's an explorer at heart and a recent master's graduate in archaeology from Ambedkar University in Delhi. His fascination with the ancient world fuels his curiosity, not only about how our prehistoric ancestors survived and thrived in their day-to-day lives, but also about the mysteries embedded in mythology. So he's very passionate about traveling to official places where history whispers through the ruins and the landscapes, offering a deeper connection to our past. Over to you, Pawan.
Thank you. So, good evening, all of you. Thank you for there till the last. My name is Rahul Kumar, and I'm here to present my paper on the role of Sanskrit and Pali texts in archaeological study. As Dr. Stanzin said that I don't know how much I do justice of this theme. As same, I would like to say it's just totally different topic, but let's just start. Oh, so first I would like to start with how Sanskrit and Pali text helps us to construct the archaeological evidences and how they refine history. So first I would like to start with, so he has done his master's in Sanskrit, so he has he wanted to reconstruct the Sanskrit and the Ramayana and Mahabharata, how they were real or not. He wanted to study that. So archaeological discoveries at the site like Ayodhya, Hastinapur, Kurukshetra, explored by Dr. B.B. Lal. So what did he explore is in Vayu Puran he found a in a Vayu Puran he found a passage where it is written that Hastinapur was carried away by the Ganga, and then time king Nisashu, who abandoned it and dwelt in Koshambi. So he tried to dig two sites, like first in Hastinapur and second was in Koshambi. So what did he find is really fascinating. He found two types of pottery. The pottery he found was PGW, painted grey, where he found. So when they left Hastinapur, so that time they were using PGW. So and the people who went Koshambi, so when they started leaving, they also starting using PGW. So he tried to correlate it with the PGW, stating that the people were both same. First, like Hastinapur people were also the people of Koshambi, because PGW were both same. So, and second thing, he also correlated the most controversial thing which he said was that PGW was related to her Mahabharata. So this was the most controversial thing which he said. And second thing, he also started digging the places of relating to Ramayana. He excavated 5 places which were the project of archaeology of Ramayana sites. It was funded by ASI and it was lasted 12 years from the 1975 to 1966 or 1975 to 1976. So what did he did? He did Ayodhya, Chitrakoot, Bhardwaj Ashram, Nandigram and Srivengpuram. And where the fascinating thing which he correlate was the deluxe tableware, which he called it new black polishware NBPW. He said that the NBPW was the pottery which were used by the Ramayana, the people who were lived in the Ramayana period. These were the pottery which you can see. And second thing which I now wanted to share with the ancient Pali text and archaeology. So I now wanted to correlate archaeology with the Pali text. First, The Pali texts like Tripitaka and Jataka offer cultural practices, religious beliefs, and daily life of the ancient people. But if we try to correlate them with the archaeological findings, we picture them historical event and social structure. So the foremost one who did this was the Cunningham. Alexander Cunningham was regarded as the father of Indian archaeology, and he used Pali sources in archaeological exploration. He dig Barhut Stup for using Pali texts and Mahavastu to interpret it iconographically and Jataka tales to stupas railing. Second, he also tried to explore Sanchi Stup with the help of Vinay Pitak and through architectural and sculptural element. Sarnath and Taxila, he also explored it with the Mahavastu and the others Pali text. And the second one which I wanted to show or interrupt with you is the Karam Tej Singh Sarao. I know people are here, many people are here who are from the Buddhist department. I know they know him. K.T.S. Sarao, former head of Buddhist studies at the University of Delhi, made a significant contribution with his work, Urban Centers and Urbanization, as reflected in the Pali texts such as Vinay and Sutpitak. It was his work who revolutionized the Pali text with the correlation of the archaeology. In this text, he used dual level methodology to correlate with them. First, what he did, he analyzed urban references in the Vinay Pitak and Sutpitak. Second, examining them with the archaeological data to understand how the urbanization was flourished in ancient India. So what he did, I want to share some statistics in his book. So in his book, he numbered total 176 settlement where he identified 80 and unidentified 52. And the number of reference of settlement he identified was 4,285. Now, if we go through more deeper, so we found that Savasti was the referred in 1,378 times, which was highest into 29.44.3 total references. I just wanted to explore more top 3 settlements: Savasti, Varanasi, and Rajgarh. So top 3 sites of the excavations. First was the Savasti. It was a prosperous site, ancient site on the Asiravati river, notable for its commercial significance, King Pasenadi's palace, and it was the monastic residence of Buddha, with a flourishing trade network and renowned merchant banker. And the Pindika. Now here second one was the Varanasi. Varanasi was the ancient cultural and religious hub. As we all know, Varanasi can be found in the reference in Hinduism and also in the Buddhism also. So Varanasi was the cultural and religious hub known for its thriving trade, shipbuilding industry and wealth. With an active maritime trade to Swarn Bhumi, wealthy merchants and notable architecture such as the 7-story palace we found there. And third one is Rajgarh, the capital of Magda, known for its strategic fortification, grand palaces, and the significance as a spiritual hub during Buddha's time, with 18 monasteries established within the city. Now I just quickly, tell about all. First one is Savasti, and then we try to correlate it with the archaeological evidence. So, in this, we found that the Savasti was go back to dating 500 BC, surrounded by the Sung period rampart. We found the relevance of Buddhist remains, stupas, and the Kushan period Bodhisattva sculpture. The second one is Rajghat. Rajghat was a place which is in Varanasi. So archaeologists dig there and they found the 8th century BC to 7th century CE time periods, structure, pottery, seals and inscriptions. And we do find there the NBPW ceramics, Gupta periods gold coins and other important things. Third one, which was also the foremost, was excavated by the Dr. Ghosh, and he found the fortification, monasteries, and structure during the 5th century BC, validating its significance in early Buddhist period and Jaina texts. Findings from the old and new Rajgah align with historical records showing its development as a fortified urban center. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pavan. Importance of archaeology sites, that they must be verified, and also bringing up Alexander Cunningham. I think his house is still to be seen in Sanchi, where they excavated, and as Leher I think brought up earlier, James Prinsep, the Ghats in Calcutta are named after him. And there was a lot of work that the British did in this regard. Thank you so much. So with that, we come to the end of our student panel, and we do not have time for question and answers, but you can, email them or talk to them after the session. So please give this panel wonderful papers, timekeeping, a big round of applause. And thank you so much to all of you for your patience to stay until the end of a very long day, but it was a very enriching day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to humbly request our Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah, Director of Tibet House, the Culture Center of His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, New Delhi, to kindly do the honor to offer the white scarf and the souvenir to our chairperson, Venerable Professor Kumarjiva, as a token of an appreciation and gratitude. Now we have Ms. Kamasishula from the student panel. And may I request Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah to kindly offer the white scarf and the souvenir and the certificate of participation for their unwavering commitment and dedication. Second, we have Tsewang Lamula. Third, we have Stanzin Hadullah. Fourth, we have Ms. Pooja. Fifth, we have Mr. Rahul ji. Sixth, we have Mr. Abhishek ji. Seven, we have Pawan Kumar. Thank you, Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah. With this, we have come to the end of today's closing session. Before we we now take a group photo. Now we have a group photo of student. With this, we have come to the end of today's closing session. Before we conclude, I would like to sincerely thank our chairperson, Venerable Professor Kumarjiva, for leading this session so beautifully. I would also thank to all the panelists for their insights, full contribution to the today's discussion. Thank you. Now I would like to kindly request our Secretary, Mr. Tenzin Kunkabla, to convey his word of appreciation and utmost gratitude to our distinguished scholars and our participants who joined with us today. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Tibet House, New Delhi, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed chairperson, Professor Abhishek Upadhyay, guest of honor, Professor Keshi Ngawasamdinla, our keynote speakers, Dr. Angraj Chaudhary and Professor Pradeep Kokleji, the chairperson of the student panel, Venerable Professor Kaveri Kilji, and all the distinguished speakers for accepting our invitation and for sharing your profound insights with us. A special commendation to the student panel for their remarkable contributions as well. I would like to extend a special thanks to Professor Thamadip Ji and Dr. Nishant Kumar from Department of Buddhist Studies, Delhi University, for taking responsibility of preparing the students from their universities, and also for the support and participation of the classmates of our student panel who have been very patient and actively participating throughout this conference. And we are very immensely grateful to Venerable Geshe Toshit Amdullah, Director of Tibet House, New Delhi, for the constant guidance and helping us enhance our capabilities. I would like to express my sincere thanks to my colleague and our volunteers for the dedication and enthusiasm into putting all this together. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our audience and students for your participation. We hope that you found the conference enjoyable, and hope we can see you all in our future conferences and seminars. As you can find in your program kit, we have opened the registration for the 5th batch of Nalanda diploma course, and the classes will commence on 4th October. In addition to simultaneous Russian live streaming, this batch will also offer simultaneous interpretation in French and Hindi language. We will also open the registration for the 28th batch of Tibetan language course in October. If you're interested in Tibetan's programs and our courses, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter by sending us an email to programs@tibethouse.in. You can also visit our website, www.tibethouse.in. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. That is all for today. Thank you for joining us and have a great weekend. Thank you. I would like to request everyone present in this very room to please come up on the dais and join us for a quick group photo.